So we have covered determination of residential status of an individual in the last lecture, and it's over now as far as individual's residential status is concerned. Now let us start determining the residential status of remaining persons. Remaining persons mean HUF, firm, company, association of person, oblique body of individuals. So one and the same category, local authority and artificial juridical person. So let us wind up this determination of residential status today. I hope it is visible.
Yes, sir.
So we are doing the topic determination of residential status. Individual is over. Individual's residential status is over. And now let us cover remaining category of persons. So my second category I will say as HUF. How do we determine the residential status of a Hindu undivided family? So how do we determine the status of HUF? R. When this HUF is R resident, if control and management. Now I will not use the term basic condition because individuals are over. For others, we have different conditions and different criterias. If control and management of the affairs of HUF is situated. So I have to check where the control and management of affairs of HUF is situated. Is this control wholly in India? Or partly in India and partly outside India? Then this entire HUF will be known as R resident. If the control and management, now what do I mean by control and management? It is basically the place where the key managerial decisions are taken, where the main management decisions or important or relevant management decisions are taken. That place is the control and management. So it depends on case to case. You cannot simply give any criteria, or just by having a look you cannot simply decide that where is the control and management. Just like an individual where you can count number of days, you cannot exactly tell where the control and management is, but still the basic definition of control and management as given the act is where key decisions are. So if key management decision of this HUF, whose residential status we have to determine, is wholly in India, then this HUF is resident. If partly in India or partly outside, still the HUF is resident. At least you are using the name of India, you are doing some activities from India, so government says you will be resident. Once this HUF has become resident, how will we check whether this HUF is resident and ordinary resident? If an HUF has become resident on what basis? On the basis of control and management. Once an HUF has become resident, and then you have to see if manager of this, now manager is a human being, HUF itself is not a human being, manager is an individual human being. Manager is nothing but karta, normally senior most member of the HUF. If manager or karta of the HUF satisfies both the additional conditions. Now I will use those earlier additional conditions. Basic condition which I have used while determining the status of an individual is still not used in HUF, but additional conditions I will require. If an HUF has become resident and if manager oblique karta of the HUF satisfies both of the additional conditions, then entire HUF will become ROR. Similarly, when this HUF is RNOR, if an HUF has become resident and if manager oblique karta of the HUF does not satisfy either one, or you can say if karta of the HUF satisfies, rather we should use this, satisfies either one or none of the additional conditions, then this entire HUF will become RNOR. And when this HUF is non-resident, can you think logically when HUF is non-resident? If control and management of the affairs of a HUF is situated wholly outside India, is situated wholly 100% outside India, then you will say that this HUF is non-resident. Now, if you notice carefully, whether the HUF is resident or non-resident, Karta has no role to play. It entirely depends on HUF, where the control and management of the affairs of this HUF is. This will tell me whether the HUF is resident or non-resident. But once HUF has become resident, then Karta's relevance will come into picture. If Karta himself or herself satisfies both the additional conditions, then entire HUF will become ROR. If Karta does not satisfy both the additional condition, the entire HUF will become RNOR. If this point is clear, please raise your hands. Any doubt you can ask me, otherwise raise your hands. So let me give you an example for you to solve. You have to solve that example yourself after applying this theory. Shall I proceed or you want to note it down? Or shall I proceed? Is there anyone who wants me to remain at this slide? Okay, so I shall proceed now, I think. Now do one example. Let me give you an example from my book. An example. This example is on page 2.8. Now you have to tell me the answer yourself. The example says, let me write some main points. There is a Hindu undivided family. The business of HUF is transacted from Germany. but some of the important policy decisions the business might be done from Germany, but as far as decisions are concerned, some of the important decisions are taken from Germany and some from India. Now, P is the Karta of this HUF, Mr. P. Mr. P is the Karta of the Hindu undivided family, born in Kolkata. He visited India after a gap of 12 years. He visited India after a gap of 12 years. On which date he visited India? On 10th May 20 and left India on 25th November 20. That's it. My question to you is, you tell me the residential status of not only HUF, but tell me the residential status of Mr. P as an individual as well as the HUF. Read the question and try to solve it. What will be the answer of this question? You have to tell what is the residential status of Mr. P and the entire HUF. This is the information available with you. The moment anyone get the answer, they can tell me so that we all can tally whether that answer is correct or not. Take your time, no need to be in a hurry. Okay, be slow, there is no need to be in a hurry.
Sir, both R and OR.
Let everyone check whether it is the correct answer or any other answer.
Yes, sir. Both are on.
So raise your hand if everyone is getting R and OR. Others can still try. We will proceed only when most of the students will attempt it. So most of you are getting R and OR, so it might be true. Others, please continue trying. No need to be in a hurry. Take your time and try. The moment you have attempted this, please raise your hand. Hurry up. If you are getting the answer R and OR, please start raising your hands. Those who are not getting, be little bit fast. It was not a tough question. Manya, can you explain how RNOR? There is some disturbance, Manya, at your end, so you don't explain. Mansi, can you explain? Okay, no. Sujit, can you explain, Sujit?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, explain.
Yes, sir. So, firstly, we'll see that as mentioned in the question, some important decisions are taken from India. So the HUF will be resident.
Because
Now,
control and management of affairs of the HUF is partly from India and partly
from Germany.
Outside India.
Outside India. Now,
so
secondly,
HUF is resident, yes.
Now, secondly, to check whether it is ROR or RNOR, we'll see what is the whether the Karta satisfies both the additional condition or not. So we'll check. So he does not satisfy the first additional condition, which is he must be resident in India in at least 2 years out of the previous 10 year, since he has visited India after 12 years. And similarly, he does not satisfy the second additional condition, which says that he must be present in India for 730 days or more during the 7 immediately preceding years. So the HUF will be RNOR. Now,
yes.
now talking about Mr. P, first we will see whether he satisfies the basic conditions. So he satisfies the first basic condition, that he is present in India for 182 days or more. He is present in India for 200 days. Now now for second basic condition, first we will see that whether it is
I will not check. Why will I check second basic condition? Is it necessary to check both the basic condition? The moment my first basic condition is satisfied, I will not check second basic condition. Why will I check second basic?
Yes, sir. It's not required to.
Yes. So I will check only 182-day condition. So he is personally is resident, but he also doesn't satisfy both the additional, so he also will remain RNOR. I hope the point is clear. So let us proceed now. Still any problem you can ask, otherwise I am proceeding to the next topic. Both the assesses, Mr. P as well as HUF, RNOR. Now third, company. How do you determine the status of a company? Company's residential status. It's very easy. Check whether the company is an Indian company or a foreign company. The question will tell you whether the company is an Indian company or foreign company. Examiner will tell you. Indian company is always resident. Always resident. Indian company can never be non-resident. It's always resident. A foreign company, in this case, it can be resident or non-resident. It depends on POEM. POM is place of effective management. If place of effective management is in India, 100% is in India, then this foreign company is resident. If place of effective management is outside India, there is no partly concept in this POM. Either it will be in India or outside India. If POM is outside India, then this foreign company is non-resident. That's it. And do remember one thing, only two persons, individual and HUF, In these cases, if these persons are resident, I will further check whether these are ordinarily resident or not ordinarily resident. Otherwise, for other category of persons, you have only two options: resident or non-resident. If someone has become resident, I will not check. I cannot check whether these are ordinarily resident or not ordinarily resident. So company, in this case, the answer will be either resident or non-resident over. Indian company always resident. Foreign company resident when POEM is in India. Foreign company is non-resident when POEM is outside India. Second point, for Indian company, I am not going to apply POEM. There is no need for an Indian company to apply the concept of POEM. It is applied only for foreign company. Please raise your hand if the point is clear. Now, before that, this POEM is also nothing but that place where key managerial decisions are taken. So that earlier three words, control and management, have been given a new name, place of effective management. That's it. So it's also the place where key managerial decisions are taken. Please raise your hand if company's residential status is also clear. Okay. Next point. And this is the last point, because for all other category of persons, we have common rule to be applied. So how do you determine the residential status of all remaining persons? All remaining includes what? All remaining includes what? Firm, yes, association of person or body of individual, one and the same thing, local authority and artificial juridical person. For these people, you have common rule, the same rule which was applicable for HUF. So when these people will be R, when control and management, of the affairs of these people, of the concerned person, whosoever this person is situated either wholly in India or wholly outside India. Sorry, I should use not wholly outside India, partly in India and partly outside India. In these cases, these persons are resident, and when these persons are non-resident, when control and management of the affairs of the person is situated wholly outside India. With this, the determination of residential status is over. Please raise your hand if the points are clear. If you want me to show those screens, I can show those screens. No need to be in a hurry. If you want to note it down, you can ask me that I should keep showing that those earlier screens. Otherwise, I can proceed. So most of you have understood.
So
yeah.
Can you go back to the status of a company? Residential
Yeah,
status.
yeah. Yeah, say it.
Done, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. Let me discuss one more point. only last point of this topic, determination of residential status, miscellaneous point. Let me ask you to tell me the answer. Again, this illustration is from my book, and I would ask. So from book, I am doing this illustration. You tell me the answer, or you tell me the problem. That what issues in this illustration we have. Page 2.10. A small illustration. Let me simplify that. For example, Mr. X has a business income of 2 lakh or business income of rupees 1 lakh. He started the business on 7th March 2021. Similarly, he has a salary income of, for example, 15 lakh. He started doing job on 1st May 20. Can you tell me some issue here, or this question is clear? That is only a discussion. Is something coming in your mind, or everything is perfect?
So the data is of 2 different financial years.
Why? These are the same financial year. Financial year is same. 2000.
मतलब 2 different previous years.
क्यों?
Okay.
Same.
Okay,
Same.
2020.
ये first में 20 है ना, 21 नहीं है.
So lack of residential status and age.
Residential status, age.
Residential status, age. What you are saying?
Residential status of Mr. X, age of Mr. X.
नहीं. एज कोई इशू नहीं है इसमें, मतलब कुछ प्रॉब्लम नहीं लग रही है इसमें. if I'm talking about residential status, what you can notice? Can you tell me the residential status of this person in this case? That's it. Can you tell me the residential status of this person in this case?
So it depends on whether his job is inside India or outside. So if it's inside India, then
everything,
he's resident.
everything in India. Everything is in India.
Then so he's resident. Since
Why?
previous information, his job is from 1st May. That's obviously way more than 182 days. He
1st May 20 till 31st March 2021. So how many days? 365 minus April. So I can say 335 days. Is it all right? Is it correct?
Yes,
yes, sir.
So he is resident for which income?
salary income.
And what about this PGBP income, business income, profit and gains from business and profession? What about that? 7th March 21 till 31st March 21. How many days? 25 days. So what about this PGBP income? What is the residential status?
Non-resident.
Is it correct?
So
We just see only for Mr. X, right? Why are we seeing for his business?
So, what is your argument? What do you want to say?
The business is not specified whether it's a company or whether it's an HUF or what is
Doesn't
exactly.
matter. Doesn't matter. It's my business. I'm a proprietor. Why it will be a company or HUF? It's my shop. I'm a proprietor. There is no need to mention whether it is company, HUF firm or what. I'm an individual. I am having my shop in a market. So I'm a proprietor. I'm an individual. Individual can also do the business. It's not that only companies do the business. Point clear?
Yes, sir.
Now, what is coming in your mind? Don't you think that, yeah, there is some clarity needed? What is coming into your mind is that for salary income, he is resident, and for PGBP income, he is non-resident. Am I right? If yes, please raise your hand. Are you also facing the same question in your mind that for salary income, he is resident, and for PGBP income, he is non-resident? It is problematic because we determine the status of an individual. We do not determine the status of one head of income. So now the question arises whether I should call Mr. X as a resident or non-resident. Please raise your hand if the question is clear in your mind. I'm not asking for answer, but is the question clear that so many times what problem can come because of such situations? I am resident for one source of income, salary, but I'm non-resident for another source of income, which is PGBP. So what is my residential status? How we determine this status? We have a section 6, clause 5. Let me show that website of tax department and then you will get the answer. Is website visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So let me show you. This is what we have been doing, residential status. Section 6, clause 5, let me show to you and see what it says. It is my section 6, clause 5, see the language. If a person is resident in India in a previous year, relevant to an assessment year, whatever is the previous year, in respect of any source of income, he shall be deemed to be resident in India in the previous year, relevant to the assessment year in respect of each of his other sources of income. Now, will you explain that what help this clause will provide in my illustration? How will I apply this clause in my illustration? If a person is a resident in India in a previous year, relevant to an assessment in respect of any source of income, he will be deemed to be resident in respect of all of his other sources of income. How will you apply this point?
Yes, sir. So in this case, then the salary from PGBP will also be taxed in the resident tax slabs rather than non-resident. So there's no confusion in terms of which tax slab to use.
That is not only about tax slab, that is about so many things. So the point is that rather than only restricting myself to the tax slab, I should say that the moment a person becomes resident for one source of income, then there is no need to determine the status in respect of all other sources of income. If for salary a person has become resident, it means Mr. X is resident, that's it. It does not matter which head is this, salary, house property, PGBP, capital gain or other sources. It does not matter. He is resident. I will not check this PGBP then. Because as per section 6 clause 5, if I have become resident for one source, any source, These are the sources. Heads. If for any source I have become resident, it does not matter what about other sources. I will be assumed to be as resident for all the sources. So I am resident, that's it. So such questions or such problems will be removed when I read section 6 clause 5 or when I apply section 6 clause 5. You have to simply learn that if a person has become resident, you have to simply learn that if the person has become resident for one source of income, and I'm using the word person. Person means individual, HUF, firm, company, AOP, body of individual, local authority, artificial juridical person, every person. For one source of income, he or it, whatever, he will be treated as resident. He will be deemed as resident for all sources of income. That's it. So in my case, it does not matter in the previous example that for PGBP I am known as no. The question doesn't arise. If salary has made you resident, then you are resident for PGBP, capital gain, other sources or what. Even if you are present for single day to earn different source, you will be treated as resident. Please raise your hand if the concept is clear. Hurry up. If the concept is clear, please raise your hands. Now, let us proceed. So our determination of residential status is over. I am moving to my second portion of this chapter, which is tax incidence. You can call it as scope of total income. This is second portion of my topic, residential status, scope of total income. It is section 5. Now, once you know how to determine the residential status, then now another level starts. Once you know that you are ROR, RNOR or NR in case of individual and HUF. For others, you will know whether you are R or NR, that's it. For other category. Now what? Now you have to see what is the relevance of determining this ROR, RNOR, NR, etc. There are different incomes which are taxable for these different class of people. So I would like to directly show you the Act section 5. Let us read section 5 directly. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let us read it now. 5.1. Subject to the provisions of this Act. Subject to the provisions of this Act. The total income of any previous year of a person who is a resident. It's using the word resident. It means what? It means what? This resident includes what? Can you tell me this resident includes what?
ROR and RNOR?
Yes, it includes both. That means if you are applying the provisions for individuals and HUF, you will say that ROR as well as RNOR are covered. If you are applying this provision for other category of persons, you will say that for resident it is applicable. So anyone who is resident or ordinary resident or not ordinary resident, whatever is the case, depending upon who you are, that person has to include all the incomes from whatever source means whether it is salary, house property, PGBP, capital gain, other sources, from whatever source, you have to include these different types of incomes. Subclause A, income which is received or is deemed to be received in India in such year by or on behalf of such person. Its simple point is income which is received in India or which is assumed to be received in India. As a resident, you have to include that income in India for the purpose of paying tax. Example is, suppose in USA I have sold a house property. For example, I had a house property in the United States of America and I sold that property there. But whatever was the money which I received from that property, that is received in my bank account in this SBI's account of Shriram College of Commerce. In SRCC, we have a bank, SBI. For example, the amount of that sale is received in this bank account, which is in India. This is subclause A, where this income is accrued outside India because the property is outside India. But where it is received, amount is received where? In India. So government says, or Act says, if you have used India, then on this income, if you are a resident, whether ROR or RNOR, doesn't matter, you have to include this income in India. And that is why income tax will be applied on this income. Point clear or not? Please raise your hand. Income, if received in India, it does not matter where it is accrued. You have to pay tax here. So my property was in United States. I sold the property in United States. So income is accrued in United States, but amount was given to me in Delhi. So under this clause, I will include the entire capital gain from that sale in India. First point. Second.
Sir, what does it mean to be deemed to be received in India?
There are some incomes which will be assumed to be received in India. You might have received some incomes even in USA. But Section 7 of the Income Tax Act gives some examples where those incomes will be assumed to be received in India. We will not check in that case where actually it is received. So there are two sections differently of the Income Tax Act, or there are provisions which tells you that these are the examples of those incomes where we will assume those incomes that these are received in India. You cannot argue that actually it is received outside India. Government says no. It might be actually received outside India, but our section says that these will be assumed to be received in India. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Because government wants most of the incomes to be received in India or accrued in India. If not, on actual basis, still there are some provisions which will say that we are assuming those incomes as accrued in India or received in India. Because these 2 points will make sure that maximum income will be taxed in India. Let me give you a small example. If Indian company gives you a dividend, even if this dividend is given to you in France, suppose you are a shareholder and you are in France, you are sitting in France, you purchase the shares through exchange while you are in France of an Indian company, shares of an Indian company were purchased by you when you are in France, the dividend is given to you in France. Still, Section 9 of the Income Tax Act assumes this income as income accrued in India or income deemed to accrue in India. There is a provision which says that, this is only an example, there is a provision which says that any dividend paid by an Indian company, even if outside India, is treated as income deemed to accrue in India. So we will not argue in that case that it is received outside India, it might have been accrued outside India. Government says no need to argue. We are giving you the provisions which are telling some incomes which are assumed or deemed to be accrued in India. Point little bit clear. Is the point clear or not? बोलो भाई बोलते क्यों नहीं हो? Sanjay, is the point clear? I
Yes,
think
sir.
your mic. Okay. So main intention of the government is to make sure that incomes are either actually received in India or actually accrued in India. Apart from this, government has two sections with it. Section 7 gives you some examples where income will be deemed to be received in India. Section 9 gives you some examples where income will be deemed to be accrued in India, because such, whenever India names comes, it will become taxable. It does not matter whether you are ROR, RNOR or NR, and in this way government gets maximum tax. Detailed discussion I will do later on. The purpose was not to discuss this deemed right now, but since you asked, so I gave you some idea. Anyhow, come back to that. Whether you are ROR or RNOR, it is one thing which is clear, that any income which is actually received in India, or if not actually received, but if it is deemed to be received in India as per the provisions of Income Tax Act, you have to include this income as your income in India and you will pay tax. Next point. Income accrued in India or is deemed to accrue in India. If it is actually accrued in India, or if not actually accrued, it will be deemed to accrue in India. It is also taxable for ROR as well as RNOR. Can anyone give me the example of income actually accrued in India? Any example where income is actually accrued in India?
Income earned from any business that is being done in India.
No. I should not use that business point here, because business point is having some different criterias. So simple example is house property. Okay, so I'm not explaining right now business point. You might be correct, but I'm not explaining that. House property rent. I have a house in Delhi and I have given it on rent. So that rental income is what? Income accrued in India. Point clear or not? If yes, raise your hand. My house property is in Delhi. So whatever rental income I will earn, that is income accrued in India. Actually accrued in India. There is no question of deemed. It is actually accrued in India. Now this rental income in my example is taxable if I am ROR or RNOR. It does not matter where rent will be given to me. Maybe it is given to me directly in my bank account, which is in China or which is outside India. So it does. I will not bother where this income is received. If it is accrued in India, I have to pay tax in India. So I have covered two incomes which are taxable for ROR as well as RNOR. Income received in India, it does not matter where it is accrued, it is taxable. Income accrued in India, it does not matter where it is received, it is taxable. And third is what? Even that income which is accrued outside India, still I have to pay tax in India. So my C subclause is income which is accrued or arises to him outside India during such year. Still that income is taxable in India. Can you give me any example of this point? What I can cover in clause C? Any example? What you can cover in clause C?
Dividend from foreign company.
Ignore dividend point. Ignore dividend point. I don't want to discuss some technical points which are having some other uses or provisions also. I want to use some simple points for the time being. So ignore dividend. Think any other point.
Maybe sale of services, or let's say from Germany. I taught in a German university.
Ignore shares. Any other point?
Sir, rent received from house property owned outside India.
Yes, and where rent is received?
Outside India.
Yes, because if you say that property is in USA but rent is received in India, then that will be clause subclause A. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
So I should, in subclause C, I should assume both the things. That income is accrued outside India, and in that example, I should also assume that received also outside India. Because if you assume received in India, then you will be covered in subclause A. So what is subclause C? House property is in USA, so income is accrued in USA. Rent is also received in USA, but still, if you are ROR or RNOR, you have to pay tax here. Point clear or not? If yes, please
Yes.
raise your hand. So I will simplify this discussion for you now. I wanted to show you that how we read the act, because in future you have to read these acts only and only acts. So you must learn now reading of act. So I am simplifying the topic of tax incidence for you. Let me simplify the topic of tax incidence. There are three people: ROR, RNOR, and NR. But before that, I want to tell you that if only R is written somewhere, if only R is written, we read it as ROR also. And such type of issue can come only with individual or HUF, that's it, not with other. Because all other can either be R or NR. In case of individual and HUF, they can be ROR, RNOR also. So in these two cases, suppose somewhere only R is written, you have to assume it as ROR. That's it.
So
If
are
for
you showing your
any individual,
presentations?
what?
So are you showing your presentation slide, because we can see the law only, the act.
You are seeing the act only. How is it possible? Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
इतनी देर बाद पता लगा आपको कि मैं कुछ लिख रहा हूँ. कितना कुछ तो लिख ही दिया मैंने यहाँ. अब कलर लेते हैं दूसरा कोई, green. Now see, if somewhere R word is written, simple R word is by default assumed as ROR, and that is only relevant when you have individual and HUF cases, because for other person either you are RAR or NR. So if for other person, company, firm, etc., simple, anywhere if it is written that resident, so there is no problem. I know that company is resident or firm is resident. But for individual and HUF, if question says that this individual is resident, so if only resident is written, you should assume that this is ROR. That's it. I will tell you the relevance. When you file the return of income ITR, when you submit the ITR forms on the website of tax department, when you say that you are an individual, they give you three options: are you RNOR, and are you NR. They only write R in the forms, they don't write ROR. So that is why I only wanted to tell you that for individuals and HUF in real life, mostly they will not use ROR, they will simply use R by default, or R means ROR for individual and HUF. This is the only thing which I wanted to tell you. Anyhow, not a big issue which I have just discussed, that was only a small thing. You can ignore it also if there is any confusion. Let us proceed. Now, there are three types of people: ROR, RNOR, NR. In case of other than individuals and HUF, rather than these two, you are having only R. Okay. And I told you that my first type of income is what? Income which is received in India. If not actually received, I will assume some incomes to be deemed to be received in India. We have a section in the Income Tax Act that we will study later on. Such incomes are taxable. It does not matter whether you are ROR, RNOR or NR. It does not matter where this income is accrued. Similarly, income which is accrued in India or deemed to be accrued in India. It does not matter where you are receiving. This income is taxable whether you are ROR, RNOR and NR. Third, income which is accrued as well as what? Can you tell me as well as what?
Received.
Yes, received outside India. For this point, there is a problem. Not problem. This requires a little bit technical discussion. So I will take your 5 to 7 minutes more. I need to again show you the website. Now see what is written. I hope the website is visible. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this subclause C says income which is accrued outside India is also taxable for a resident, but also provided word is used. Provided means there is an exception. What is this? In the case of a person not ordinarily resident, that means for RNOR people within the meaning of subsection 6 of section 6, RNOR is actually what provisions we have covered in RNOR, those are written in section 6, subsection 6. Meaning of subsection 6 of section 6. Wait. RNOR meaning is defined in section 6, so that I am not discussing. You simply read it in this way, that any person who is RNOR, for that person, now read carefully, the income which accrues or arises to him outside India shall not be included. This is the change here. Income which is received in India, taxable for ROR, RNOR. Income which is accrued in India, taxable for ROR, RNOR. But income which is accrued as well as received outside India is taxable for ROR. For RNOR, this income is not included, not taxable, unless, that means in one case it is taxable, unless it is derived from a business controlled in or a profession set up in India. I don't know whether you have understood it or not. If you have understood, it is great. If not, then let me tell you what this point says. It says income accrued as well as received outside India is taxable if you are ROR, but it is not taxable in case
Sir,
of RNOR. Yes.
sir, I guess we can still see only the tax screen and not the board.
Oh, I forgot to share now again. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Now see this, what it says. Income accrued as well as received outside India is taxable for ROR people. There is no problem about this. But for RNOR, it is taxable only if, or you can say only and only if. Can you remember what point was written there? Only and only if the income is from business. Do you have any other lecture now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so please wait for 5 more minutes. Taxable only and only if the income is from business and profession, as well as one more thing, this business must be controlled in India. Controlled from where? In India. Or if it is a profession, then this profession must be set up in India. Otherwise, this income which is accrued as well as received outside India is exempt, or you can say not taxable for RNOR. In other cases, it is not taxable for R&OR. Let me again discuss this point with a small example, and you have to think and tell me. Now I will ask some numericals and you simply tell me the answer. I am doing job in Delhi. I am doing job in college, SRCC. If I am ROR, will I pay tax on this salary income in India? Hurry up.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, why? Because it is accrued. It does not matter where I am receiving it. If I am RNOR, will I pay tax on this salary income which I am getting from SRCC?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, because it is accrued. It does not matter where you are receiving the money. If I am a non-resident, will I pay tax on this income in India?
Yes, sir.
Getting salary from yes,
Yes, sir.
because it is accrued. Similarly, suppose I am I am doing some job in France and I earned salary from France. But the amount was given to me when I was in Delhi, in my Delhi's bank account. Will I pay tax on this income if I am ROR?
Yes, sir.
Suppose it is received,
Yes.
it does not matter where it is accrued. Will I include this income if I am RNOR?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Will I include that income if I am NR?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Received in India.
Yes. Yes. Because it is received in India. Now, a small example. Salary in USA. Company, that MNC was of USA. Received also in USA. That means I'm doing job in a USA company based in USA. In USA itself, I'm doing the job. So my salary accrued in USA. I received that salary in USA. The amount was 20 lakh. Now you tell me, if I am ROR, will I include this 20,000 in India?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Why? Why?
Accrued and received outside India.
But still, it is taxable if you
But
are ROR.
ROR.
Yes, great. If you are non-resident, then this income is not taxable. That point I have not told you. But now, if you are a non-resident, then income received and accrued outside India is not taxable. So if you are a non-resident, you will not include 20 lakh. Am I right? Unmute and reply.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now the technicality only arises in this case. Otherwise, this section 5 is very simple. This is the only technicality. In first 2 points are very simple. Income received in India, taxable for all. Income accrued in India, taxable for all. Third point is also simple for ROR and NR. Income accrued and received outside India, if ROR, taxable, if NR, not taxable. What about RNOR? That is problematic. Now you tell me, 20 lakh is salary income received and accrued outside India. If I am RNOR, is it taxable or not? Is it taxable or not? If I am RNOR, read this box and then decide.
Sir, can you repeat
No.
again?
No, sir.
No, sir. No, sir.
Salary is earned in United States. I received the salary in United States, but my residential status is RNOR in India. Will I include this salary income 20 lakh when I will compute my income in India?
No, sir.
No, sir. But there is this one exception only.
No. Why? Why no?
Because for an
Why no?
RNOR, because for an RNOR, if the income is accrued and received outside India, then it's not taxable, and provided there is this one exception alone.
So you tell me this exception. What is this exception? Is this salary income not covered in this exception?
Uh, it's not covered in this exception as well, sir, because it's a company based in foreign and not in India.
No, no, no. You are not giving the reason. It is not covered. Why? Because which head is this? Salary income is which head?
Income from salary, sir.
Yeah. And taxable is only for which head?
PGB, business and
That's
professional.
yeah, PGBP. That's it. It's very simple reason. Income accrued and received outside India is never taxable for RNOR except in one situation, which is that one situation. If this income which is accrued and received outside India is from business or profession, and if that business or profession is controlled or set up in India. If that income which is accrued and received outside India is not covered under the head PGBP, then it is tax free, or you can say it is not taxable for our NOR. It might look a little bit technical, but in the next class we will do numericals, then you will find it very interesting and very easy. So that's all from my side. Let us wind up this session. Goodbye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.